Okie dokie, everybody. Welcome back. You're here at the Fox Den with Pater Voss, the Papa Fox, and we're going to continue playing Tyranny by Obsidian Entertainment. When we last left off, we had done a whole bunch of talking, but it looks like we still have some more to do. And I haven't exhausted the conversation things with both Lantry and Eb, or with Barrick for that matter, but I have with Verse. So that actually might reveal some things that we can talk with them about that might be some special character building stuff. So we're actually going to go ahead and do that. Stirring Visions, Weight of Aegis, petition Tunon on Barrick's behalf, which we are definitely going to do. We're going to see if we can't convince him to our side of things. Barrick stares at you through his narrow eye slits, saying nothing at all. The only evidence that he still lives is the steam of heavy exhalations steam of heavy exhalations that escape the cracks of his helm. Are you okay in there, Barrick? He continues to stare, unmoving. Though you can't see his face, you get the impression that his mood has darkened even further. The stench that his armor exudes has intensified. Are you mad about something?
You betrayed Graven Ash, the Legion, and our northern countrymen. As far as I'm concerned, you are a traitor to this campaign.
Barrick leans in close, looking ready to throttle you. Barrick gain average fear. The people of the Tiers deserve to govern themselves.
If you truly believe that, then you have missed the entire point of this conquest from the beginning. 3 years of wasted effort. Let us be clear on one point. You have my blade, but my heart belongs to Ash and the North. I am a weapon bound to you only by duty. Nothing more.
I can live with that. Okay.
You look as if you have something on your mind. By all means.
Okay, let's see.
What can I do for you?
We'll talk later. Okay, cool. Lantry.
One moment, my friend. Just let me finish this thought.
Ending his note with a flourish, Lantry licks the tip of the quill, pausing to taste it a second, then the third time, before tucking the pen in a holster on his sleeve. So what's on your mind? Did you want to discuss matters of the present, or would you prefer a more scholarly rant? Current matters? Of
course. How can I help?
Region we're in.
The spires predate us all. As far as I know, we're the only ones who've been up here since... ever? I think this might be a first. Perhaps the real Trailblazer had trouble getting down and was lost to history. Of course. How can I help? The spires... Of course. Okay. How can I help?
Lots of notes. What about?
All kinds of things. My mind is old. Memory's a sieve. Keeping track of you, noting what I hear of the war, scribbling down reminders to myself, that sort of thing.
Is it safe to be writing on your arms that much?
Oh, certainly not. But it depends on the ink I'm using. Too much cerulean and I can't sleep. But just the right amount, and I can write all night. The red ink will give you swamp bottom if you drink it, but absorbed through the skin, it'll make you taste colors and smell music. Speaking of which, I should change out my tip.
Oh, Lantry.
I use 3 kinds. Sepia, cerulean, and a red that's never the same shade. My recipe needs work. I like having 3 colors, but they also provide different states of mind for writing.
That's interesting. That's a little bit of fun. Your inks sound like fun. Can I try them?
No. No. I'm trying to observe you. Corroding your mind is not part of the plan.
Are you spying on me?
Well, yes. If I'm worth my weight in tin as a craftsman of record, future generations will know of you. So yes, the Archon of Posterity sent me. You seem troubled by something that ought to be an honor.
Well, let's speak of something else. Questions
I am nothing
you?
if not a semi-reliable font of knowledge. What did you want to discuss?
So what can you tell me about the School of Ink and Quill?
You mean what's left of them? What would you like to know?
What's the core philosophy?
The sages are archivists, academicians, and arcanists. Our mission is to preserve the knowledge of today for the good of tomorrow. Though we are known for our magic, few realize that most sages concern themselves with scribal work. Only a select few have the talent or focus to work the sigils. Each sage benefited from the scrolls of learning that came before him, and so each sage must repay this boon by gathering, authoring, or translating new texts to the stacks. But all that's a bit generous. It's no secret that the sages were far more happy to add knowledge than to share it.
Why did the sages resist Gyros?
Why, indeed. As historians, it is our place to document, not direct. Let others rage and resist. Ours is the duty to record. The decision to defy Kairos was not unanimous, nor one decided upon lightly.
I take issue with this. The study of history is kind of interesting. The utility of history is that it has commentary upon the context in which it's being written and studied. Lantry's having a bit of a cop-out here. Historians play a very active role in influencing people who read their histories. How they read it, like the type of people who are writing it, all of that has an impact.
The laws of Kairos would forbid much of the knowledge contained in the Vellum Citadel. The elder sages feared, rightly perhaps, that the Overlord would put an end to our tradition of stockpiling knowledge. The Battle of the Vellum Citadel was a battle to preserve knowledge, but our actions will be remembered as treason against the will of Kairos.
I might not necessarily agree with Lantry, but trying to defend a depository of knowledge, however they wanted to hoard it away, simply, at the bare minimum, keeping it existing is a noble cause. Tell me a little bit about the school's history.
The sages trace their days to a generation after 5 Wives, when the first settlers moved west. The Vellum Citadel began as a scholastic retreat, slowly blossoming into the finest library in the continent across the generations. The centuries fly by, and suddenly, the Vellum Citadel is the definitive archive in the tiers. The sages branched out into carrying missives for wealthy clients, training noble children to read. The peasants may have feared us, but we remained useful enough to the kings and queens of the tiers to avoid war. When Kairos came to the tiers, that's when our hubris came back to haunt us. The elder sages, the other elder sages, not I, believed our spellcraft was enough to ward off any siege. Well, we know how that turned out.
He also does touch upon something that's kind of interesting regarding folks who do have quite a bit of education, is they do tend to be very, or can be, very prideful. Just because you know a lot, and even if you're right about something, that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll have an effect on the world that takes your knowledge into account. So it's not enough to know that you're right, you have to be able to have people trust that you're right. You can know everything there was to know about everything in the entire world, but if nobody paid attention to you and acted as if you had said nothing, then all of your knowledge will be completely thrown out the window. It's kind of like the myth of Cassandra in Greek mythology. She was prophetic, but she spoke in gibberish, and nobody, like, she knew everything that was going to happen, but it didn't really matter that she knew it. Nobody could really understand her. Now, what sorts of sigils do the sages practice?
Traditionally, we use magic only so that we may observe and archive. So that means magic of concealment and protection. But, in truth, we have amassed a great wealth of knowledge. Before the Vellum Citadel fell, any given subject of magic had at least one sage practicing it.
So you're admitting you had at least one agent of yours studying the magic of the Tidecasters?
Well, I mean, if such information had fallen into our hands generations ago, we'd be fools not to...
Not to suckle off that ill-gotten teat of knowledge? Filthy word whores of the worst degree. The Edict of Fire wasn't half of what you deserved.
Your capacity to hold a grudge is not enduring. Still your complaints. Guess the centuries of theft are coming back to bite you. This is actually something kind of interesting. I think I'm actually more on the side of Ebb. You should never steal knowledge, especially if it's something that's sacred to somebody's culture. It's something that I don't really have a whole lot of expertise in dealing with or talking about in a really intelligent manner. But as far as I can basically understand it, if a culture doesn't want you observing or recording something that doesn't have a direct harm to anybody, and everybody is consenting to whatever this thing is, you should back off. I'm definitely going to side with Ebb on this one.
Well, it's not like I personally stole from your school, and nor did I get to study the Tidecaster scrolls. Not for lack of trying, I'll admit.
Just stop. The less you talk, the less you'll suffer when I finally kill you.
But we don't want him to die, and I get her anger, but it's a little harsh. Okay, questions?
I am nothing if not... I know everything, except for who's been saying that. What's on your mind?
Can you teach me something about history?
I'm flattered you think me that wise, but unless you are enthralled by migration observations and titillated by triangle ratios, I think I'd bore you silly.
But what better tangent than triangles?
Fine, fine. If you have truly nothing better to do than talk trivia with old Lantry, so be it.
Lantry pops open a scroll case by his hip, producing a long, handwritten manuscript.
A Brief History of the Tears by Sage Lantry. Volume 1, Settlers from the East. Dry land! Came the cry from the prow of the ship. After months in the deep ocean, the pioneers of the Tears saw their promised land at long last.
Oh, that's awesome. The minutes roll on and Lantry's cheerfully reads through his painstaking treatise. Listen politely. Fascinating.
Volume 3, years 90 to 94. If you thought 88 was a crazy time when everything changed, wait until 91.
Haunting memories of Tunon's lectures creep into your mind. We're going to continue listening. Listen politely. Really? Do go on. Lay on, Macduff.
Well, if you enjoyed that, you're going to love Ratios of the Sun. So, by using the shadow of a staff at noon as a starting point, I used triangles to show a relation.
Like Tunon, Lantry cannot kill you for walking out of a lecture. And unlike Tunon, Lantry has to eventually sleep. You've experienced worse. Lore 43. But were your two measurements far enough to derive a parallax?
Ah, I knew someone would ask that. And yes, so here's my proof. Sage Winding Script shows a relationship between all half-square triangles. I have a diagram somewhere.
From time to time, the wind picks up. The howling, biting breeze offers a momentary respite from the deluge of blather. So if that's correct, you could estimate almost any length from an unknown angle.
Yes. Way to steal the concluding reveal from me. But yeah, that's about the gist of it. Now, if you'll excuse me, I think my voice needs rest. Thank you for the rousing conversation.
Oh, that's neat. I like that. That makes me all warm inside. Okay, let's talk with Eb.
What is it you need?
Discuss.
I'm still amazed we survived the Edict of Execution. The Chorus may outnumber us, and the disfavored seem to grow more aggressive every... What is it you need? Ask away. You know, I normally charge for this, but for you...
Eb smiles, awaiting your query. What can you tell me about your magical tradition?
Now, you know that's a very personal question. The knowledge I have is a centuries-old gift from the Archon of Tides. I would sooner discard my life than the sanctity of that gift. I will speak in generalities only.
Ask. Worst I can do is not tell you. Tell me about your influence. Tell me about how you influenced Taratus Grave. Trade secret. Not one I'm going to talk about. The School of Tides dies with me, and so too will this. And don't bother trying to change my mind on this matter. It'll just get ugly quick. Tell me how you influence ice, mist, and other forms of water. With years of training. Now look, most of those secrets have already been stolen ages ago by the sages. Doesn't mean I'm going to tell you just because the secret's already out. But it means you can go ask someone else if you really feel so entitled to know. And before you ask, I learned plenty from knowledge stolen by the sages. But no, I don't know how to do what Eb does, magically or otherwise. Can you teach me what you know? I suppose I am capable of it, but no. The secrets of Archon of Tides dies with me. We're not going to give her fear. What are the philosophical teachings? There's a question I can answer. It would surprise you little to learn that we see all things, peoples, war, seasons, to be cyclical, waxing and waning through their various forms, like tides and the light of Taratus Grave. Oh, okay. Taratus, the planet, has 2 satellites. Okay, awesome. The mind is limited. We're born and spend our lives dodging death. We expect all stories to have a beginning and an end. We assume that all things start and stop, just like us. In truth, all things are cycles. Some by matter of minutes, others by matters of years or lifetimes. The School of Tides, we appreciate patterns of all sorts. Most are called to the depths, others find their interests skybound. Many still find the tides of human emotion and political fortunes far more intriguing than inanimate tides found in the orbits and oceans. I really like this. This is kind of neat. From what Archon do the Tidecaster draw upon their magic? Tidecasters. Typo. The first Tidecasters were given the gift of magic by our school's founder, Occulted Jade, Archon of Tides. She was not of Kyros's ilk. She was as powerful as any Archon, and from her name and legacy we can mimic the moon's pull on the seas and change the currents. And it's from her that we have spells to turn the moon's pleasant hues into a baleful ray of searing gravelight. In all these years I have not grown tired of the thrill of power. It's a rush it's a rush of carnal humors every time. I'm guessing you can tell me more than I ever wanted to know about the moons. You'd be right. My magic is generally associated with the moon, Taratus Grave, but you have to know where Interloper is in the sky when mucking about with mystic forces. Do you control water, or do you mimic the tidal effects the moons have on the water? Both, actually. I'm amused you're keen on the difference. Our spells of ice and mist affect water directly, but are of limited volume. Displacing your own body weight in water is no mean feat. But if I were to move an ocean current, I'd drive myself nuts moving water in front of a boat, a little at a time. That's where I'd use a cantrip to simulate tidal pull. Taratus Grave is the big one, right? Tell me about it. Fixed in the sky, it's always overhead, day and night. It was first named by folks living far to the east. They'd look to the west and see the moon like a permanent hill on the horizon, a grave where the sun dies each evening. That's how older folks saw it. If you live in the western part of the world, Taratus Grave is overhead all the time. This means that day and night it's reflecting the sun's rays. And if you know what you're doing, it doesn't just reflect, it magnifies. Ooh. Interloper is the one that moves in the sky, if I remember the lessons correctly. Exactly. Interloper orbits Taratus in a steady clip, and its orbit sometimes crosses in front of Taratus' grave, leading to a mystical calamity if you don't know what you're doing. Something else? Have you heard anything from the Tidecasters left before the war? No, and I don't like entertaining the hope. Those cowards are all gone. If they didn't die at sea, they're dead to me. I reserve the right to be pleasantly surprised if they come back, eager to fight the good fight, but I'm not holding my breath. All the brave Tidecasters died, present company excepted. Fine. We can talk about other arcane matters.
You know, I normally charge for this, but for you...
Magic of the Archons. You have to know I'm out of my element. That is to say, I've studied the many Archons a great deal. No expert. And like most who have invoked the Archons of times past to work magic, I do wonder what the difference of birth or experience gives one the magical potential to be an Archon. Most of my studies have been into the question of origins of form. It's known we can emulate the magic of Archons that came before us, but is it possible to tap into the magic of Archons yet to be? So far, the answer seems to be no. She looks at the ground with a rumpled smirk. Know anything about the old walls and spires? Not enough. Never enough. Eb smiles, twirling her staff in her hands. As a child, I was terrified of the old walls. I think that's true of most folk. Now I can arc grave light with a wiggle of my fingers. Well, I think when I'm a shriveled old hag, dying in the old walls would be the great way to go. Okay, grave light is the magical term for the light of the specific nefarious purposes. Ooh. Sunburn. Oh, okay, cool. So we can turn these into rays of damage. What can you tell me of the Bane? What I know is largely taken from Master Cambrel's work and some near-fatal experience venturing close to the odd walls. As best I understand it, the Banes are bits of magical will that have an extended life of their own. I'm of the belief that they nest to reproduce in the old walls. The only place you regularly seem to find them. Our magic attracts the Bane. That much I know to be true firsthand. Again, this is personal theory, but I'm guessing they eat or drink magic, so our spells are invitations to dine. Change subject. Let's see if we can actually get through all of this talking before we end the episode here. My alarm just went off. Questions about the people of the
We all know how to swim, and we all know how to fight. Most Northmen are lucky to make half that boast. What would you like to know?
Curious about the people. Okay, if you think you'll find each of I think you'll find each of us think themselves a child of Haven, as in my case, or a child of Azure, child of Apex, or what have you. I suppose we Tiersmen have our shared customs. The most treasured of those customs used to be the pride of being free of Kyros's rule. Do you have particular questions? Oh, there's a lot of stuff. I'm going to see how quickly I can get through this. When were the Tiers settled? Hundreds of years ago, displaced from a war. Okay, cool. Tiersmen will sometimes speak of the 5 wives. We used to refer to the 5 settlements where the colonists made landfall, as well as the 5 matriarchs that went on to form... Oh, okay. So this is a matriarchal, as mentioned before, a society. Of course, I'm leaving out the matter of the builder of the old walls. Who knows when they lived? Okay. Why don't men own land, or women's ships? This is actually something I was curious about. For centuries, it has been our way that the men own the ships, but the women own the harbors. Our customs don't truly prevent ownership. They limit inheritance. Lands pass to daughters, then sisters, then mothers and aunts. Ships pass to sons, then brothers, then fathers and uncles. It seems strange to outsiders, but it makes sense to me. Men are blessed with wanderlust. Women with a sense of permanent. Likewise, the captain of a ship can't pause to carry a child, and men grow restless if left in place. In truth, the custom varies from place to place, and you'll find men with enough wealth to own land and women with enough sway to own ships. As is often the case, the nobles pick and choose their traditions. That's a neat little bit of flexibility. I'm not sure I entirely agree with the, okay, men do this and women do that. I think there might be some thing about that that's non-cultural, but I think a lot of it has to do with how men and women, how people are raised in a given society. A lot of it is cultural affectations. Why didn't the Younger Realms stand united? Rub it in? Yes, the Younger Realms were defeated. Okay, cool. I genuinely want to know your thoughts on the matter. You're being defensive over nothing. opportunity. That's what killed us. Haven wanted to watch the bastard tier fall first. Apex was hoping Haven would fall, and Odzir wanted Stalwart to be attacked first. Every realm of the tiers had some interest in watching their neighbors fall first, so we all held back our support until a year or so into the war. Too late by then, squabbling idiots. Okay, tiersmen live with greater numbers of beastmen. What's that like? Beastmen of the tiers are hardier and smarter than their kin elsewhere. And fortunately, we've lived together in relative harmony for some time. Make no mistake, life is difficult for most beastmen in the tiers, but compared to, say, how they were treated in the Northern Empire, I'd like to think we tiersmen are a bit more modern and forward-thinking, even if just a bit. But I suppose I also take an overly optimistic view of our beastly cousins. I find their clumsy honesty endearing, and while no human will say nice things about my cooking, no beastman has ever said anything mean about my worst dishes. Change the subject. Major resistors.
Kairos made swift work of the tiers, destroying most of the great armies of the Younger Realms in a few short years of war. Of course, queens can be bowed, captains slain, but we are a proud people. I think Kairos will find the stubborn remnants of the tiers hard to eradicate completely. Was there a particular group you wish to discuss?
The Unbroken.
The Unbroken is the name of the military of the now fallen realm of Stalwart. Every citizen of Stalwart was trained to fight, and all were expected to answer the rallying cry of the regents, the ruling small council of the realm. A decade ago, Stalwart was the ass end of jokes tiersmen would tell each other. The people of Stalwart are obnoxiously proud of a long history of being invaded, but never losing. The disfavored put an end to their vaunted record of victory. The Unbroken still persist, albeit marginally so. The disfavored withdrew after the Edict of Storms began shredding the landscape. Their holdfast of Sentinel Stand Keep was never taken, and the citizen army, though scattered, could still be rallied.
Tell me about the Stonestalkers.
Kairos' war was disastrous to the human realm of Azure, but a stroke of good luck for the numerous beastmen that toiled in Azure's endless wheat fields. With the masters all dead, the serfs have been set free. The Stonestalkers are a tribe born from these newly freed beasts. I imagine they would never bow to Kairos or the Archons. Too many generations have been enslaved. I'd wager anything they'll die before they ever bow. Beastmen understand strength and leadership, but it's always in the concrete sense. I can't pretend to know how they think, but I could never imagine them accepting an absent Prima. A distant ruler they can't see or smell seems a bit too abstract.
What about the Bronze Brotherhood?
The Bronze Brotherhood is one of the most feared and famous of the Free City mercenary companies. They serve the highest bidder, and during the war, that was Kairos. Most of the Brotherhood perished in the war, but a handful. The crew hired to work at Lethian's Crossing. They got to babysit the Forge-bound and survived the last few years with minor losses. The band is too small to be a serious threat to the disfavored or the chorus, but they are Scourge-worshipping berserks that will adopt any enemy for the right price. Maybe even Kairos.
Are there remnants of the Younger Realms that could still rise against Kyros?
Several sages came to our aid during the Second Battle of Vendrian's Well. I at first thought they meant to kill me, but instead they put their lives on the line for us. They spoke of others in their guild braving the Edict of Fire to salvage lore from the burning library. Though I may find them untrustworthy, it must be said that the sages have a certain fearlessness toward the Overlord. Perhaps that could be kindled further.
Having been part of the surrender faction within the school, I'd concur with that point. I thought the Edict of Fire would finally kill their defiant streak. But no, the sages still refuse to bow. We can and should mind their passion.
Historically speaking, an alliance with the School of Ink and Quill is just asking to have your efforts stolen and your goals undermined. Mark my words, some things never change.
I think the sages. Think of the sages as a resource. In that case, or in that sense, you're fools not to use them. The concern is noted, but irrelevant. The sages will obey me. I will work with them. I don't want them to obey me. I'm not going to go with either one. Would you rather they be our enemies?
Well, perhaps we can shove them in front of the enemy. And the ones that volunteered at Vendrian's Well weren't all bad.
Let's change the subject. Different nations in the tiers. Okay, the Younger Realms, Bastard Tier, the Free Cities. Let's go ahead. I'm going to skip through a bunch of this. Get a pause on each of these things so you can read at your leisure. Okay, term Younger came in fashion. Okay, cool. Wonderful. Before Kyros, the tiers were the Younger Realms, the Bastard Tier. Okay, cool. Bastard Tier. Northernmost, choke point of the Empire. It's been a hub of trade. Okay. It's more than just a fun story to scare your kids. Okay, cool. What can you tell me about the Free Cities? There is little free about the cities save for their independence from the Younger Realms, but they are not physically adjacent, but rather politically allied by their shared hatred of the other realms. Most of the Free Cities were defeated with little effort. Just had to hire agents and get the mercenaries. Okay, change the subject. Change the subject. Away. What can you tell me about the Archons?
Not entirely sure. Which is to say, there was a time I studied my enemy in great detail, but I've recently come to learn that much of my information was little more than lies and misdirection.
Archon of Secrets lives up to his name. I've also heard it is said that all stolen knowledge is why he speaks in different voices. And truth, lies and misdirection, we'll grab an ash. He was a harmless old man, Archon in name only, but he could have been wrong. Many have underestimated the great general by his age. Okay. Tiny band on disfavored on nearly unstoppable rampage. Okay, Cairn. Enough. She inhales sharply, folding her arms in a scowl. There's clearly a story here. I'd like to hear it. A few years back, the remaining elder Tidecasters met Cairn in battle. Tall as 10 men, but invincible, and I thought nothing could stop us if we stood together. Whatever, it's an old story. So everyone died except you. Color me surprised. Lose every... I'm glad you lived through it all. I'm not, and I don't need your pity. Let's speak of other things. Siren? Siren is a usually powerful child. Scarlet, of course, was recruited by Siren's persuasive song, and I'd not doubt it. Okay, cool. Change the subject.
Ask away.
Do you know of Arcane Society?
I know a great deal of the mages of the tiers, or at least their history. Most are dead now. I know a little less about the guilds sworn to Kairos as Archons, but I try to make an effort to know my opposition.
What about the Earthshakers? Disciples of Cairn? They share their master's command of tremors and soil. From what I gather, serve the disfavored. It's deeply strained. Blood Chanters? Magic is taken from the sigil of Siren. Wild Wrath, their magic is fire. Barely qualify as a proper school. Brutal Buffoonery. Forgebound. Unusual sort of magic. They specialize in slow, painstaking rituals that do not produce the dazzling blast of energy, like her magic. They talk about making tools. A little bit of fascination. Cool. School of Ink and Quill. Behind the Tidecasters, the Sages of School of Ink and Quill are the second oldest arcane institution. Bad blood. If I'm being objective, Sages claim to be scholars interested in collecting and archiving. Okay. But in no sense did they seek to share their knowledge. Many of our secrets have been pilfered by Sages' spies over the centuries. We're not alone. Sages have the secrets of many other guilds. School of Tides. Oh man, so much lore to get through. This is actually going to be a longer episode. I want to just hammer out through all of this. Cult of Jade, Archon of Tides, as old as the Settlers of Five Wives, that we know are the 5 original settlements. Why didn't your Archon fight in the war? For about a year or so before the troops arrived in the Bastard Tier, a Cult of Jade proclaimed The age of the tears was over, and said she'd depart southwest, into unknown, unending ocean, rather than face Kyros. Most of my guildmates went along, choosing to risk endless high seas rather than risk battle. A few of us, the militants, as our peaceful brethren dubbed us, chose to stand and fight. Okay. What are the other magical schools and guilds of the Tears? They've cropped up from here and now. The Cutter's Guild, Healing Magic. School of Flowering Winter. Okay. Change the subject. Talk about something
what
else.
What is it you need?
Return to our travels. Okay, there we go. Well, if you've enjoyed that, go ahead and give me a like or give me some feedback if you prefer. Of course, if you enjoy my other videos, then a subscription to the channel would also be most excellent. As always, it's great to see you all here at the Fox Den, and I hope you come back next time and pull up a chair for some more Tyranny. Alrighty, you take care now. Bye.